Welcome back to the Wicked Kitchen, guys. Today we are making fresh vegan homemade pasta, all from scratch. It's an exciting recipe. I absolutely love the process. Stay tuned, do not go away, watch this video. All right, so let's make some fresh pasta. Fresh pasta is one of those recipes that are so liberating when you make it. It's kind of like making fresh bread or fresh tortillas, something that you can easily go out and buy, but it's just so nice to make yourself, right? And there's big difference between fresh laminated pasta and dry pastas. There's still great uses for dry pasta. I love great recipes that use dry pasta, but fresh pasta, making it yourself, getting your hands in there, putting the love into the whole process is what it's all about with cooking for myself. So we're gonna start off with looking at the functionality of what a fresh pasta has. The components of a fresh pasta is typically eggs, right? Eggs are used strictly for functionality when it comes to the protein and the fats to make it a little bit more pliable and also to bind really well. All right, so this recipe is inspired by our boy Tal Ronnen. He runs Crossroads Kitchen out in LA, one of our favorite restaurants. And he inspired this recipe. It's in our book, Wicked Healthy Cookbook, as the core recipe and to all of our fresh pasta dishes. So I start off with silken tofu. Okay, silken tofu is going to be that protein. All right, so next we're gonna add the fat. You can choose a number of different kinds of fat. You can use olive oil, you can use a vegan butter, you can also use coconut oil, but those tend to have a lot more flavor. I like to use, which is a controversial product, I like to use a red palm oil, but this is the only brand that I like to purchase. And it's organic, it's sustainable, it's grown in small farms, it's not displacing animals, and it's not focused on deforestation like a lot of the controversy is around this ingredient. This is the only trusted company that I use, Nutiva's, for their palm oil and for it to be clean. Let me explain why I use this ingredient. Is I'm trying to mimic a egg style pasta. An egg style pasta, high egg pasta is you can tell the difference of the color. It's very yellow, very light orange, right? And using a red palm oil really helps get that color, and it also helps with the once it has actually chilled, those fats solidify a little bit more than if you were just to use olive oil. Now you could go the route of using a little bit of coconut oil and a little bit of turmeric to mimic that color and that functionality of palm oil, but palm oil tends to work the best. This is what we use in the Wicked Healthy Cookbook, and it's how Tal also showed us this recipe. So we're gonna use a little bit here. Okay. And we're just gonna blend that up with a little bit of salt. Just gonna blend that up. And this is we're basically making the egg right here. We're making the wet component to the fresh pasta. So as it's blending, you wanna make sure you get all those bits and pieces down. And again, this cream mixture is mimicking the egg in a high egg pasta. All right, so that's been blending for a couple minutes here. Now you can see the silkiness of that cream, okay? All it is tofu and fat and a little bit of salt, okay? So protein, fat, and salt. All right, so the next step is, while this is blending, I'm gonna add two different types of flours. So there's you can easily use all-purpose flour. All-purpose flour is great. I like to use a 00 flour. It is actually a little bit lower in gluten, and it also is extremely fine, okay? And it works really, really well with fresh pasta. So I'm using almost equal parts of a 00 flour and semolina, okay? So while this is blending, I'm just gonna add equal parts. And the key that I'm looking for is, as this is blending, I'm gonna start to slowly add the flour, and it's gonna form into a ball. And once it forms into a ball and sort of clumps all up and starts pulling away all the mixture from the sides and the bottom, that's when I'm gonna stop it. I'm gonna put it on the board, then we're gonna follow the next step, okay? See that? That is exactly what you're looking for right there, all right? So as it starts to pick up all the pieces on the bottom and also around the sides, this is when you remove it, and then we're gonna bring it to the board and start kneading it a bit. All right, so we're gonna remove it from the food processor here. This is perfect. Make sure you get all those bits. All right. All right, so I wanna put a little bit of flour on the board. And then now it's kneading, all right? It's time to knead. Now kneading is going to activate the gluten. Even though the blending does it, it's quite soft, but I want to knead in a little bit more flour. And you're basically, by kneading, you're taking a quarter turn. And you can see, just to look at this, if you can see how all of the strands are all broken up there with the gluten, okay? And it's very rough, all right? And as we start kneading it, you're gonna start to see it get a lot smoother, okay? And that where that gluten is gonna be fully worked and the whole ball of dough will be a lot smoother, and that's what you're looking for. So you're gonna knead it on the board for anywhere from 8 to 10 minutes. And it definitely, when I say it's a labor of love, it definitely takes a little bit of time, but it is so incredibly worth it to have fresh pasta. The perfect pairing to fresh pasta is Nana's red sauce, which we have simmering on the stove over there. Should be ready in a little while, just in time for this pasta to be ready. If you want to check out that recipe, you can follow this link right here. We did an amazing video on that one as well. And that is a featured recipe in the Wicked Healthy Cookbook, along with this pasta recipe. So I'm just gonna knead this for, again, 8 to 10 minutes, and you'll start to see the surface of the dough will get a lot smoother. All right, just about close to 10 minutes later of kneading, you can see that that gluten has really been activated and it's blended in. You don't get that sort of ripping look, which is amazing. And so we're gonna do it a little bit more, a couple more minutes. And then what we're gonna do, we're gonna wrap it up with plastic. We're gonna set it aside. This is a great recipe to make ahead of time. So if I know I'm having a dinner party, I will make this a couple days in advance. I'll bring it to this stage and then I'll just wrap it really tight, put it in the fridge. Alternatively, if you make a big batch of pasta, you can wrap it real tight and you can also put it in the freezer, take it out and just make sure it's totally at room temperature when you start to use it. So we're just gonna knead this a couple more times and then we're gonna wrap it up with plastic and set it aside for a good hour. And what that does is that relaxes the gluten, because right now it's all activated, all that gluten. And so it's really, really tight, okay? And once it actually relaxes, then we're gonna be able to roll it out with a pasta machine and form it to the shapes that we want, all right? So that looks great. You can see it smooth on the exterior. Let's wrap that up. Okay, I like to wrap it up real tight. And then I'm basically just gonna put this on the back counter. And if I'm gonna be using it immediately or that evening, I'm gonna keep it on the back counter, just in room temperature. If you're not gonna use it to the next day, throw it in the fridge, take it out, probably about an hour before you're gonna use it so it warms up, and then you're good to go. So we're gonna come clean up our space, we're gonna come back, and we're gonna roll it out and check on it. All right, so this pasta has been relaxing for about an hour, so have I. So we are ready to open this up. Check it out, it is super soft. Look at how smooth that is. Now that the gluten has relaxed, it is a perfect dough, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and slice it up. Look at that, it's like butter. So beautiful. So we're gonna cut this up a few times, but we're gonna press this through. I'm gonna use a little bit of flour on here. So I tend to use just a little bit of flour, a little bit of semolina. Not too much because you don't want it to dry out. I'll just show you here. So this is a manual pasta maker. So I always start off on 0, okay? And what you're going to do is you're basically gonna knead this a couple times before you start fully rolling it out. So I'm gonna start off at 0. I'm just gonna fold it in half. All right, and if it starts to look like it's ripping a little bit, that means it needs to just go through a couple more times. So I'm just basically kneading it on the lowest level. This is a 0. Okay. All right. And do it a couple times here. All right. Again, just folding it over, keeping it on 0 until it looks very, very smooth and you don't see any tears. You don't see the gluten stretching so much. All right, just folding it in half, folding it lengthwise. All right, so it's pretty much ready now. I like to square it off. Make sure it's even. Okay, so the difference with this pasta and other pastas, other fresh pastas, is this is very delicate and it cooks so tender. So we'll talk about cooking in just a bit here, but we're gonna move this to the next level, okay? So I'm hitting it with a 1 and I'm just gonna roll that through. Okay, once that's through, hit it with the 2. I like to work with manageable size sheets. Okay, you can get as long as you wish with these sheets, you know, but with the space constraints here, we're gonna just keep it to about this size. All right, it's so nice. This pasta is just beautiful. Love it. All right, we're gonna go to a 4. Again, I'm just slowly moving down the dial here. I'm gonna take it to probably about a 5, maybe a 6, okay? And depending on the pasta that you wanna make, like I like a little bit of a bite, so I don't wanna make like an angel hair here. Whenever I make pasta, I don't even do fresh spaghetti so much. What I'll do is like a pappardelle, which is a thicker pasta. Handkerchief pasta, they call it, which I'll show you in just a bit. And I also love making raviolis. So if I had 3 hands, this would be much easier, but you learn how to work with your pasta maker. So if it needs a little bit of flour, certainly hit it. Look at how beautiful these sheets are. Look at that. And you can see through it almost. So delicate. Fresh pasta, I just love it. It speaks to my heart when it comes to just slow food, and I just absolutely am in love with fresh pasta. So I'm gonna cut this to the size that I want. Let's do it just to tray size. All right, that is good. So I'm gonna put these on trays. So let's set that aside. So I'm gonna put a little semolina on the tray. I'm gonna lay out that gorgeous pasta. You can hang off the sides, totally fine. Nice, nice. Hit it with semolina again, and let's work the next piece. All right, so I'm just gonna slice this, not too large, right? I mean, that was one recipe, 1 block of silken tofu, and it's gonna give you enough pasta for a couple meals, at least. So again, starting off at 0, making sure I add a little bit of flour in there. This is definitely a messy process, but it's part of the fun. And you can see, you know, we talked about using a little bit of that red palm oil in here for color. Now, if we didn't have that, it would be a very white pasta, which I'm fine with, but just for appearance-wise, I like that familiarity that a lot of people have with a yellow pasta, an egg-based pasta. All right. Get a little bit more on there. This looks like it's good to go. Make sure that runs through again. All right, let's move that to a 1. It's not sticking to itself, which is really nice. And the key here is just make sure that you're adding a little bit of flour as you're rolling. That'll make sure that it's not gonna stick to itself here. Let's just look at that. It's just so delicate. You can almost see my hand through it, right? That's a come out of 5 here. This is perfect for lasagna sheets, raviolis. I'm gonna do a pappardelle. I'm gonna do a thick pasta, hand cut pasta in just a little bit. Let's roll out a couple more though, while we're at it. All right, so we just rolled out all that fresh pasta. We have all these fresh sheets. They are so beautiful, so beautiful. Again, I brought it up to a 5 on the manual pasta cutter, 5 or a 6. Either way is fine. But because these are gonna be used for lasagna, I want them to have a little bit of a bite, so I stick around 5 or 6. So what I'm gonna do here, they have a little bit of semolina on them, so they're not gonna stick. They're gonna stay separated. I'm gonna put a few together, and we're gonna make a pappardelle, which is a thick handkerchief pasta, which is just one of my favorites also to do with fresh pasta. So one of the things you can do, I like the rough cuts, so I'll just slice without trimming. But if you don't want the rough cuts, you can certainly, take these, set them aside. You can have those as a test batch when you're making the pasta. But I like to square it off a little bit, and it just is so beautiful. I mean, you can see the layers there. And I go probably about half to 3/4 of an inch. All right, and this is a thick pasta, which is just so nice with like a bolognese. So I'm gonna take those aside, and you can just see, you just gently unroll them. Make sure they get enough semolina. Okay, and oh, so nice. I mean, I cannot wait to devour some fresh pasta in a little bit here. So we have some beautiful, beautiful strands here. And I mean, this is, I would say 1 sheet is a portion. I can't get enough of fresh pasta, so I would probably eat about 3 of these sheets with a portion. But again, just gently tossing them. It is super delicate. It is so incredibly delicate. One of the ways that you can keep these in advance is you can put it in an airtight container. Just make sure it has tons of semolina in there. You can't put too much semolina, all right? It's not like it's gonna absorb the semolina, but what that's gonna do is it's going to help keep them separated here. And just look at how beautiful those pastas are. Another way is just cutting it a lot thinner. I like hand cut pasta. You can get an attachment for your manual. You can do linguine. You can do the linguine. You can do a spaghetti size. I like personally to cut it myself. So I like hand cut pasta. So we're gonna do a ravioli video as well. But right now we are just doing this hand cut. And again, I'm gonna trim the sides a little bit. This will be for a little test bowl that I'll do. And then you can just go more linguine. All right, so I slice these up, more linguine size. Just gonna unravel these up. They should unravel pretty easily if you have enough semolina flour there. So one of the things we didn't talk about with pasta while we were making this is coloring pasta, okay? You can really get some beautiful colors in fresh pasta by simply highlighting other ingredients. So there's a couple ways to do that. Let's say you wanted to make like a pesto fresh pasta, or a spinach fresh pasta, or red bell pepper fresh pasta, or sriracha fresh pasta, something that's a little more exotic. You can basically, there's a couple ways to do that. If you're gonna use like a puree, let's say that you wanna make a pesto pasta and you make a very smooth pesto, all right? You can do that, and let's say it has oil already and there's a level of moisture there. You just make sure that you add less moisture when you're making the pasta dough that the recipe calls for. If you're gonna make like a red bell pepper pasta or a spinach pasta, a great way to really highlight those type of pastas is using a freeze-dried product or a dried ingredient. So dried peppers, dried spinach, you can grind it up into a powder. You can do the same thing by making like a kale pasta. And it's just, I mean, the vibrancy of freeze-dried fruits and vegetables ground up into a powder and using it in a pasta recipe is fantastic. If you're gonna do like a mushroom pasta, a truffle pasta, just using those as dried ingredients is a great way to really highlight a lot more flavor in the pasta. I like making a basic pasta because then it's all about the sauce pairing. So there you have a fresh linguine. It is so beautiful, this linguine. And we're gonna just show you some lasagna sheets. I love, 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 love making fresh lasagna. So I'll start off by, you don't need to trim it, you don't need to cut it or anything. We're gonna make a fresh lasagna in another video, but basically using these sheets, you can put these in the fridge. Let's say you're not making it for a couple days, putting them in the fridge, wrap it up really tight, just making sure there's no added air in there. And then you can just take them out and use it as such, which is great. Another way to use them is you could basically cut them up so they're manicotti style. So you can put the filling on one end and you can roll them. And so there you have manicotti. So there's lots of different ways to work with fresh pasta. Definitely have fun with it. All right, so once you have your pasta cut, okay, once it's pre-prepped, you wanna make sure that you heat up some water. This is the best way to cook it. If you're not going the route of covering it in a sauce like a lasagna or a manicotti, you wanna make sure that you heat up some water. You do not want the water to be at a rolling boil, okay? A rolling boil is for dry pasta. This is extremely delicate, so you want it to just be hot, more of a simmer than anything, okay? And so you're gonna gently drop the pasta in there to a simmer, and it is done literally in probably 2 minutes, okay? It cooks incredibly fast, so keep an eye on it. Make sure you have a strainer handy very quickly. What I like to do is I like to have a strainer in the pot, drop the pasta, pull it out when it's done in 2 minutes, and you're good to go. I never, ever, ever rinse my pasta with water. I always time it so that the sauce is warm. I drop the pasta in the water for 2 minutes and I pour it in the sauce, toss it in the pan, serve it, garnish it, and you're good to go. So that is the easiest way to cook it. Make sure that you handle this fresh pasta with care, certainly. So, all right, you guys, there you have fresh vegan pasta from scratch. You will not be disappointed with this recipe. If you like it, be sure to subscribe. Until next time, thank you so much for joining. Isn't that cool? All right, let me cut this because this is a little obnoxious.